The origin story, the one you're referring to, of Radical Candor, happened in the space of time it took a light to change on the streets of Manhattan. So I had just gotten a golden retriever puppy and Belvedere, and I loved Belvedere. I loved her so much that I had never said a cross word to her. And as a result, she was totally out of control. So I was taking her for a walk one night. She's jumping all over the place, and a cab came speeding by. I pulled her out of the way in the nick of time. And I was standing on the street corner with my heart in my throat because this puppy I loved had almost just been flattened by a taxi cab. And a man, perfect strangers, also standing there waiting for the light to change, looked at me and he said, "I can tell you really love that dog." That is all he had to do to move up on the care personally dimension. He didn't have to remember my birthday or know my kids' names or anything like that. He didn't have to take me out to lunch. He just had to notice my humanity in the moment. And that's a huge part of Radical Candor. But it doesn't stop there. Then he said, "But you're going to kill that dog if you don't teach her to sit." And he kind of pointed with a harsh gesture at the sidewalk. He said, "Sit." The dog sat. I had no idea she even knew what that meant. And I kind of looked up at him in amazement. And he looked back at me and he said, "It's not mean, it's clear." And then the light changed and he walked off, leaving me with words to live by. And so you can really change someone's life in a moment if you're willing to take an extra beat to get on the same side of the table with that. I can tell you love that dog, whatever it is. I can tell you care about that project. But and then tell them what you notice that's going wrong. When the leader cares personally about their direct reports, that their direct reports are going to care personally about their direct reports. And that does create a culture of caring, and that does scale. But I think the trick is that very often, especially in sort of smaller companies, it's natural that everybody knows each other, everybody cares, and then it gets successful and then it grows. That's where ruinous empathy can set in, because it feels like offering criticism is a punishment, but it's when you shift your mindset and realize it's a reward. It's how we help our collective efforts succeed and how we help individual people grow, then it becomes easier. There's a definite order of operations to Radical Candor. So it all starts with soliciting criticism, no matter who you are in the organization, but especially if you're the leader. If you're the leader, in fact, in general, I say praise in public, criticize in private. But if you're the leader, you actually want to solicit public criticism, and you want to make it clear that you're the exception to that rule. But the reason why is if you solicit public criticism as the leader, then you do two good things. One is that you get an opportunity to lead by example and to show how to respond well, to treat feedback like a gift, not like a punishment. And the other good thing is that public criticism for the leader scales, because if one person has this criticism, probably 50 other people have this criticism, and it gives you the opportunity to answer 50 people's question once. And if you're a leader, you're probably busy. No matter who you are in this world, you're busy right now. But especially if you're a leader, time is of the essence. So it all starts with soliciting criticism. So there's 4 parts to soliciting criticism, and it should happen mostly kind of like in the moment, although sometimes you can create processes. But I want to talk about the in the moment criticism. One is you want to have a good sort of go-to question. In the book, I recommended the following question: is there anything I could do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me? But if you write a book about feedback, you're going to get a lot of it. And here was some feedback. I got some feedback about that question. One bit of feedback is that it's much better to say, what could I do? Not, is there anything I could do? Because you don't want to ask a question in a way that the person can say, oh no, everything's fine. So you want to demand an answer. The second thing is that a lot of people said that they felt like that question didn't sound like them. I was working with Krista Quarles when she was the CEO of OpenTable, and she said, I could never imagine those words coming out of my mouth. She said, the way I like to ask the question is, tell me why I'm wrong. Okay, that's fine too. The point is, it's got to feel authentic to you. If you adopt my question, you're going to sound like Kim Scott and not like yourself, and people won't believe you really want the answer. Now, asking the question in a way that's authentic to you is only half the battle, though. You also have to ask the question in a way that works for the other person. And so after I started this company, Radical Candor, with Jason Rosoff, Jason told me that he hated my go-to question. It was too open-ended. He felt like it put too much of the burden on him. He wanted me to ask him more specifically, like, what are you working on right now? And ask me in that meeting how to go. Like, did I interrupt you too often in the meeting we just had together? How often? How many times did I interrupt you in the meeting that we just had together? So that is, if everybody listening can take out a pencil, or if you're driving, don't take out a pencil, take out a voice memo and just jot down, what's the question you're going to ask? Who are you going to ask it of? And when are you going to ask it? Our time today will be really well spent. So that's part of it, is, soliciting criticism. Don't dish it out before you prove you can take it. The next step, though, is you've got to embrace the discomfort. No matter how good your question is, the other person is going to feel uncomfortable. Best way to do that: close your mouth and count to 6. I only made it to 3 just there, and I could see you were getting more and more uncomfortable, right? So you want to make sure 6 seconds is a long time. Almost no one can endure 6 seconds of silence. So if you can remain silent for 6 seconds, then the person's probably going to tell you something. So now, congratulations, you've dragged this poor soul out on a conversational limb you never wanted to go on. They never wanted to go on. Now you've got to make sure that you're listening with the intent to understand, not to reply. Because you're probably, even though you just asked for feedback, you're a human being and you're probably going to feel a little defensive when you get it. And so you want to make sure that you're managing your defensiveness and asking some follow-up questions or repeating what you think that they heard. And then once you really do understand, you've got to reward the candor. And if you agree with the feedback, so that's the last and final step. If you agree with the feedback, it's pretty simple how you reward the candor. You tell the person, thank you, and then you fix the problem. You take an action, and then you ask them, did I overcorrect? Did I undercorrect? Was that good enough? So that's the simple scenario. But what happens when you disagree with the feedback? I think part of the reason why people are reluctant to solicit feedback is that when you solicit feedback and then someone says something you disagree with, you feel like you've gotten yourself into kind of a wedge. So what do you do when you disagree? When you disagree, you look for that 5 or 10% overlap. What did they say that you can really agree with? And give voice to whatever that area of agreement is, just to demonstrate that you've listened and that you're not knee-jerk shut down the feedback. And then say, as for the rest of it, I want to think about it and get back to you. And then you really must get back to them. It's crucial that you really do get back to them, because if you just say thank you for the feedback but you disagree, the other person is going to hear F you. That is not a reward. And I think it's tempting to feel like, again, this is what we're so uncomfortable with, disagreement. But it's tempting to feel like a disagreement is going to hurt a relationship. But actually, a good and respectful disagreement is often the foundation of a good relationship. It's the unspoken disagreement that does real damage to a relationship, in my experience. So that's sort of soliciting feedback. The next step, of course, is to give it. And when you're giving radical candor, remember, it's even more about praise than criticism. I think if I can offer myself some radical candor, one of the problems with that story that we started with is that it sounds like it's all about the boss criticizing the employee. The boss must first solicit, we all, no matter who you are, solicit feedback first, then give voice to the things you appreciate. You want to express gratitude and appreciation to people. And remember to keep that stuff top of mind, because it's really important. But when it comes time to offering either praise or criticism, you want to do it in these 2-minute impromptu conversations. Don't save it up for a one-on-one. Definitely don't save it up for a performance review. And you want to be humble. You want to state your intention to be helpful. You want to make sure that you do it right away. I think radical candor has a short half-life. The sooner you do it, the better and the easier. You want to praise in public, criticize in private. And you want to do it before times, I would say do it in person. It's in today's times, you want to do it synchronously. You want to do it either on the phone or on video. And last but not least, you want to make sure you're not offering people either praise or criticism about their personality. You want to use sort of context, observation, result to offer praise and criticism, showing people what to do more of or less of.